Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Dog Pound. We'll be joined by K9 shortly, and our other guest. But right now, we're talking with Miss Melissa Smith from Girl Boxing. Melissa, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing really well. It's so great to see you, JK. Hoping you're well too.
Oh, I'm doing well out here on the West Coast. We finally having some California weather.
Mm.
Right now, last week. I was California cold, coming from the East Coast, so out here, once you stay out here for a decade, it's, as soon as you hear the words 50, you start looking for sweaters,
Yeah, exactly. Get your down jacket.
but uh, every place that I hear of over there on the East Coast, I just talked to my friend in Pittsburgh today, and it seems like it's goose down weather out there for you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely been cold, and we've had bits of snow. Luckily, in New York, we haven't had too much snow yet. Just little dustings and a couple of nor'easters coming through. But it's been down below, well below the freezing into the teens and the 20s. So it's cold in the morning, and you kind of get yourself wrapped up in 19,000 layers because in New York we also don't like to be cold. So we have our long, huge down coats and then another coat underneath and jackets and sweaters. It's crazy.
And you know, we can't talk about New York, of course. Being a big sports fan, and the things that are going on with Kyrie out there. But what is the situation with vaccines, public gatherings, masks? Because it's getting time for you guys. What, Golden Gloves time? Or have you already had it?
Yeah, no, well, what we have right now is, we've had Omega really hit us hard in the city. Um, it's like every other person was sick. I think I actually got COVID myself, and on the day that I tested positive, which I think was December 29th, there were 68,000 people in New York State who tested positive, of which about 40,000 were in New York City itself. Things have thankfully slowed down, and where Brooklyn was getting, where I live, 10, 20,000 people testing positive in a day. We're down to 4, 5,000, 3,000. So it's much more handleable, but some of the hospitals are still in bad shape. None of the gyms closed. We've always been under a rule since the summer that you have to have proof of vaccination um, in order to work out in a gymnasium or in a boxing gym. So that's still the case. Sparring is allowed. Masks are not mandatory in gyms, although it used to be I was the only one that ever wore one. But the last time I was there before I got sick, there were more people wearing it, and then when I got back to the gym after being sick, I noticed the same thing: more people in masks. New York's got a pretty high. City has a pretty high percentage of vaccinated folks and folks who've had boosters. But that having been said, there are still certain neighborhoods where it's really low, and unfortunately, that's where the majority of the people got sick. And even though Omicron is not as dangerous if you are reasonably healthy and have had the vaccinations and the booster shot, if you have not been vaccinated, you will still likely end up in the hospital, or if you're immunocompromised or have other issues. So people are still getting very sick. We have a hospital out in Coney Island that actually had to get help from the U.S. military. In fact, they arrived, I think, yesterday to start giving relief to the very, very beleaguered medical staff who just has not been able to meet the demand for hospital beds out there. So it's kind of a mess, but life is going on, if you will. We do have mask mandates that goes back and forth with the courts, but the restaurants are open. It's not like the state has or the city have imposed closures, what has happened is in certain cases, restaurants or other venues have voluntarily shut down for a short period of time. Some of the theatrical venues have done that. Certain restaurants were doing that, in part because people just said, I'm not going out. I don't want to get sick, or they were sick. So some restaurants just closed down for a few weeks, shuttered rather than having their full staff in and buying all this food and everything else with nobody showing up. So, as I said, things are starting to ease up a little bit and getting back to normal. Subways are crowded. People are going to work, but it's complicated here, just like everywhere else.
Well, my next guest is actually from southern Florida, so it's
Mhm.
not so complicated down there because it's like just
It's
one.
Florida.
Yeah.
It's DeSantis,
So,
so you know.
yeah. So, but a lot of interesting things, excuse me, in play. It seems that we have some very exciting fights coming up in women's boxing.
Yes, we
Some
do.
very exciting things. So I'll kind of throw it your way because this is your expertise. We've heard, but tell us about all this exciting news in women's
Sure.
boxing.
Well, the first is on February 5th, Clarissa Shields will be fighting, will put all of her middleweight titles on the line and fight an undefeated female fighter named Emma Kozin, who's actually 21 and 0 and 1, and Clarissa Shields, I think, is 11 and 0. So as Clarissa says, hey, we have even more, she's had more professional fights than me. But that's going to be really big. Now, the aside from the fact that it's a big, huge championship fight, as you may, or in terms of what your audience may know about women's boxing these days, in the U.S., promoters just aren't paying, or they're not putting them on fights. And it's still a little bit of a carnival show. And Clarissa, who is this extraordinary boxer with great pedigree and really is someone who brings in fannies into those seats, was not getting the respect she deserved, the money she deserved, and ended up making a 2-fight deal that brought her over 7 figures with Sky Sports in the United Kingdom. And their new promotional arm, which is called Boxer. So she's still with Dimitri Salito, who is her promoter, and she has her manager and Mark Taffet. But they did a 2-fight deal in the United Kingdom on Sky Sports, which is a huge international sports network, just sort of like ESPN or Showtime or any of those in the United States. And more than that, finally got the 7 figures she deserved. So she's getting paid over $1 million for 2 fights, and which is still low, but it's something. And the second fight will be she's going to fight Emma Kozin and presumably win. And then this is setting up her second fight, which would be likely against Savannah Marshall, who is also a middleweight champion, who is famed as the only person that ever defeated her. This is way, 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 way back in 2012 in the run up during the Olympic trials. So it's been a long, long time. But there's a lot of hype for that eventuality of the two of them meeting in the ring. Savannah Marshall it has a lot of KO power. So in England, they are all
Uh,
thinking that Savannah
Melissa,
Marshall's going to whip her butt, but we don't think so.
but Melissa, can like now you said Clarissa has two fights.
Yep.
One February 5th.
One
Did
February 1st, one to be determined.
okay. The one February 5th, day after my birthday. I'll definitely be watching that one, but I'm gonna
And
be
that will, by the way, just to interrupt for 1 second, that will be shown in the United States as a pay-per-view fight.
yes,
It's going to
yes.
cost $29.99. They'll have 2 fights. It's also Chris Eubanks Jr. is going to be on, is the main event on that card. And the thing is, Sky Sports, just a little bit of an insert here, they had a deal with DAZN in the United States to put all their boxing content in the United States. That deal ended, and so Sky Sports does not have a firm partner for their boxing events. They do. They have certain events that they do through Top Rank, but it's really the MTK global fights that are shown on Sky Sports are done through Top Rank. Other than that, they're doing one-offs on various streaming platforms. In this case, it'll be on Fight TV. And again, it'll be showing Chris Eubanks and Clarissa Shields. And in the United States, that will be pay-per-view $29.99.
Yeah. Now you can't beat 29.99. I mean that's like back when pay per view first started. I mean
Right,
it's
right.
that those
Yeah.
prices. But now isn't there a young lady in Washington D.C. that's kind of getting overlooked?
In which
Franchon?
oh, Franchon Cruz, yeah. I mean, she's she's had fights, she's at super middleweight, she's undisputed. And Franchon Cruz is just it's like she's had fights that were supposed to happen. They were canceled for a variety of reasons. You got the pandemic all in the mix of this. They were trying to promote a fight on through Matchroom Boxing in United Kingdom. That would be on DAZN. That has fallen through. Still trying to get her matched and find someone for her to fight to allow her to defend her belts. Whether it may even end up having to be a mandatory at this point. But yeah, she's really had a hard time getting fights together, and she's not the only one. Franchon is there. She is. She's undisputed and can't get a fight. But you also have, in the United Kingdom, Natasha Jonas, same situation. She fought Katie Taylor really hard. She had a controversial loss, split decision loss for a title against Terry Harper in 2019, and just has not been able to get the fights. Now, she has also jumped over to Sky Sports Boxer, the same group that Clarissa Shields signed with, and they're supposed to be getting some fights lined up for her. So we'll see how that all goes. She's also an Olympian and a really well skilled. So it's a mess. And right now, women are getting the best deals, at least in the English speaking world. The best paydays and the best deals are right now coming out of the United Kingdom, either through Matchroom Boxing with Eddie Hearn or through Sky Sports with Boxer, and there are some fighters that are now jumping over to MTK as a promoter. That has its own issues, MTK Global, because of alleged relationships with Irish drug kingpin Daniel Kinahan. Again, I'll say alleged, but there's a lot of problems in that arena. So it's kind of a mess. And then, of course, the pandemic didn't help things. But in the United States, there's just very little happening. You've got, Golden Boy has Marlon Esparza and Sinisa Estrada, both of whom just fought in December. They were extremely exciting. Estrada in particular just really rocked everybody's world. So you've got those two women on Top Rank. You've got Michaela Mayer, who is going to be fighting somebody in the next few months. And I think they have one other fighter on Top Rank who should be fighting soon, known as Pink Tyson. And she's actually been sparring with Clarissa Shields in camp, helping Clarissa get ready because Clarissa's in camp in the United States before she'll head to UK in about a week. But otherwise, you just don't see it. It's like all this minor market stuff. They have promoters. You've got people that are with Lou DiBella, but he's only able to get women pretty much only on DAZN cards right now. Al Heyman with PBC continues to refuse to put women on his cards. Maybe some undercard first fight of the night, but really no. I mean, they just had a Showtime card this weekend. There were no women
Right.
on that card, and Steven Espinoza at Showtime's promised, like, yeah, 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 we're going to have women in 22. But if they're only showing PBC cards, what the hell? There's not going to be any women on the fights. So, uh, women in the United States again are getting shortchanged, and the only way they're able to get any deals is to go to UK. You got Alicia Baumgartner, who defeated who took Terry Harper's super featherweight belt away. I'm sorry, yeah, featherweight belt. Um, she's now signed up with DAZN because she wasn't going to get money here, so she's going to be fighting for Matchroom Boxing. Um, Same thing with Callie Reese. She's she's won her super featherweight fight against Jessica Kamara. She's supposed to meet up with Chantel Cameron, who's with DAZN, and those promotional deals are going to be made through Matchroom Boxing and shown on DAZN because nobody can get. There's no promoters in this country that seem to be willing to not only give women a shot but pay them for the excellent work that they do. And
Now,
then
I
yeah.
got to ask this now. Let's go back to the Clarissa Shields deal, or
Mm-hmm.
and she's finally getting 7 figures,
Yep.
but the fight only cost $29.99.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to see uh, what's it, DePaul uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Don't even.
cost
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
cost, cost at least twice, if not 3 times that much.
Listen, Keith Thurman, right, is fighting this weekend for $79. Isn't it the fifth?
Yes,
I mean,
that's the fifth.
$75, $79, whatever the heck it is for that fight. Who the heck would pay for it? Why would you want to see him for that kind of money? What? So yes. So, and the thing is,
I'm just thinking of the disparity here.
the disparity is crazy, right? So Clarissa, to her credit and to the credit of her really smart team, and she's just re-signed with Dimitri Salita. They have really played hardball. Listen, she was headlining on Showtime After Dark or whatever that show is,
Yeah,
but and that was great. She got she got a lot of viewers. She did her own pay-per-view, but the truth is nobody in the United States was willing to put her on a main event on that kind of a deal. And so she had to go to the United Kingdom. And Sky Sports has money. They have their subscription based. So yeah, it's pay-per-view here. It's a minor partner. Fight TV, I mean, okay, they show small market MMA fights. I mean, they're known. They have an application. You can get them on Smart TV. You can download
we
it on Smart
we've had
TV.
some of their executives on the show.
Yeah. So they're really trying to make it, but there's no firm deal with Sky Sports Boxing, and they do shows. Once this, I mean, England has been in stop for 5 weeks, and just parenthetically, the February 5th fight has been given the okay to go forward by the British Board of Boxing, BBBC. It's going to be in Cardiff in Wales. As I said, Chris Eubanks Jr. is going to be the headliner on that fight. And that's going forward. So British boxing is going to really start to rev up in starting in February, and Sky Sports will have fights that they'll be broadcasting every couple of weeks, but there will be no American broadcaster except on a one-off basis. There's really no deal, and that's problematic because there are a lot of women fighters that are starting to show up on these Sky Sports cards that We can't see. But some of them are American. And maybe there'll be a pay-per-view on a one-off basis, $29.99, $19.99, but no consistent outlet to see these women fight.
Now, there's another big, some other big news in women's boxing, right? Uh,
The other big news is Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor. Now, Amanda Serrano has, well, she ended up appearing on, she's probably about the only woman who fought on Showtime last year. She was on the Josh Paul card. She did 2 fights on his cards,
Jake Paul.
pay-per-view. Jake Paul, yeah, Jake Paul. And he has since then, they like each other, and he's now her manager. So they have a management deal. And they are negotiating with Eddie Hearn at Matchroom for the lightweight showdown with Katie Taylor. Now, this is a fight that Lou DiBella had been trying to get for well over 2 years. And it kept falling through. And, you know, there's a lot of back and forth on why those fights fell through. But my understanding is it was often from the Serrano camp. So now they've got a tentative date, which would be April 30th. It would be at Madison Square Garden with a commitment to do it in the big room, not in the small theater. But it's still not announced, still not signed. We keep hearing from Eddie Hearn, it's coming, it's coming. We'll see if that really indeed does come on April 30th. We're hoping it does, but right now it's still not signed. That fight, if it goes forward, would probably be the biggest female payday in the history of the sport, which would be over $1 million for each fighter for that fight. So it would be 7 figures to each fighter. Very big purse. I mean, there have been very few 7-figure fights, individual fights for women in the history of the sport. The first woman to get those numbers was Regina Hamach in Germany. And then you've got Katie Taylor. In the United States, nah, not per fight.
How, if you were a betting woman, how much would you, from a dime to a dollar?
Yeah.
What would you bet on this fight happening?
I don't know. The longer it goes, the less that money is. You know, I'm at around 45 cents right now.
I mean, when you just told us about how all of these females have to go across the pond in order to make decent money.
Yep.
You know, and then you have a proposal here in the United States.
Yeah, but it's a British proposal, right? Okay, because this Eddie Hearn is Matchroom Boxing, and Katie Taylor, that's her promoter.
Right.
And
so it's not about the promoters not having the capital.
Right.
I mean, you know,
it's
Jake Paul has certainly made, you know, his money very quickly. And as you mentioned, Eddie Hearn, so we know this is not about finance.
No, they have money. The money's there. It has to do with Serrano camp, Taylor camp. Taylor's pretty, it has to do with, we'll see how that Serrano camp goes. I don't know. There have been issues in the past, and I don't have enough inside skinny. I just know that there have been issues in the past. So we'll see whether this really happens. I really hope it does, because it will be a terrific battle, and it will have other female fights on the card. which will also showcase other fighters of excellence. Um, and Katie Taylor has fought in the United States before. She has fought in Madison Square Garden. It's her second home. And of course, Serrano, Amanda Serrano's Puerto Rican. She's fought in Madison Square Garden. So it's a great opportunity for a great fight in New York City. I mean,
Oh yeah,
Madison Square Garden, as you know, is, Mecca of boxing for a lot of generations. And both of those fighters have serious fans in New York City. And as long as the world is not imploding from COVID, there are a heck of a lot of people that are going to fly over from Ireland
well,
and the United Kingdom.
Britain has just opened itself up, so
They're good. So there's no likelihood that there would be anything curtailing fights the way, for instance, Tyson Fury, when he fought this summer, folks
right.
from Britain couldn't fly in. For this April 30th date, there'll be a lot of people flying in
Oh yeah, yeah,
to watch this fight from Ireland, from the United Kingdom, and nobody here really understands just how big Katie Taylor is in Ireland. I mean, people would throw roses in front of her on her walking down the street. I mean, she is it in Ireland as a sports figure, as a major celebrity. So there will be a lot of folks that will come over to support her. She has a core of supporters in New York City. And then, of course, Serrano, she's Puerto Rican. This is her home. She's from
yeah.
Brooklyn. She's fought in Madison Square Garden. So in terms of the venue, it's the perfect venue for this fight. Because Katie Taylor can claim New York as a place that belongs to her as well. So I'm excited for that opportunity. I really hope it happens on a lot of levels, but I think the choice of Madison Square Garden makes a lot of sense. And my understanding is, they've got a solid hold on the date of April 30th. We'll just see what happens. Hopefully, there's an announcement next week.
We'll see. Hopefully that will happen. Now you've also, you're a member of the Hall of Fame, Women's
Mhm.
Boxing Hall of Fame. Any news on that 2022?
Yes, it's happening. 3 years all together, 2020, 2021, and 2022. So we're really excited. I can't wait to go. Um, Marion Trimier, who won the she won the International Boxing Hall of Fame Pioneer Award for 2021. She's been ill, but everyone in her life is really working hard to try to get her up to Canastota so she can go and receive that. And the same thing, excuse me, with Barbara Buttrick, who won that award for 2020. She's now 92. So everyone is just really, really hoping that she can come up to Canastota to receive the accolades that are her due, because she really has been so important to the sport. So my understanding is the date is June 12th. That's the weekend for that, and it's really exciting. So for the yeah, so you got Holly Holm and Regina Hamlick, who we just talked about from Germany, and then of course Layla Ali. How exciting is that, right? Layla Ali getting it, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, the first daughter of a fighter who was also in the Hall of Fame. That's extraordinary. And of course, Christy Martin, Lucia Riker. So there's really great folks who are being inducted, women who are being inducted, who really deserve that opportunity and that chance to just really, really have a giant smile on their faces for having finally been recognized for their contributions to the sport. So I can't be more excited, and I know I'll just be shedding a lot of tears,
Well,
seeing all those people.
that's on my bucket list. I'm not going to promise say that I'm going to make it this year, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's very just exciting thinking about it. And I know Scully does his thing up there, and now you ladies have your own wing up there, I believe,
Yeah,
right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, there is.
and
It's quite beautiful, and in the each year there's a program, and then a really nice write up on each fighter. And I had the honor to write up the small bio on Marion Lady Tiger Trumier, so I really felt proud of that opportunity, and just I just adore her. She Lady Tiger is such a was such a fierce advocate for women in the sport at a time when nobody knew or cared. But she was out there literally on a hunger strike to try to bring attention to the plight of women in the sport. So she deserves everything she gets.
well, I know it's late back there on the East Coast, so
Yep.
I'll let you go. And I want to thank you so much as always. Any new books coming out? New articles?
Yeah, I am. Well, first of all, I'm doing a lot of writing on my website, which is girlboxing.org. I have a podcast I'm co-hosting called War Sports. We really get into sports justice. That's kind of our thing. And then I've just finished a chapter in a book. It's going to be a compendium of memoir pieces. Which will be published sometime over the summer into the early fall. And my piece is called "How Boxing Uncaged Me," which is all about my own personal journey in the sport. So I'm really feel very proud of that. I'm very excited. Otherwise, I'm on Twitter, Girl Boxing Now. Same thing with Instagram at Girl Boxing Now. And thank you, JK, as always, for the opportunity to talk about women in boxing. And just so glad to see you looking so great.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Look forward to talking to you very soon.
Okay, bye bye.
Yeah, bye bye. Yes, that was Miss Melissa Smith, a very good friend of the show. Always comes on, talks about women's boxing, very knowledgeable. And as I said, member of the board of the Women's Boxing Hall of Fame. I'm hoping that my other guest will be here soon. Let's see, I might have to see. Uh, I'm gonna send him a quick text. Um, I'm actually I wanted to get in touch with Mr. Art Butler here. Mr. Art Butler is actually from South Florida, and I was talking to him today, and we were talking about some of the restrictions or non-restrictions in Florida. Um, Let me see. He may have forgotten.
Hello?
Yes, we're waiting for you, sir.
You ready?
Yeah, we're waiting. We've been waiting a little bit.
Can you hear me okay?
No, I'm waiting for you to come on the show. This is my phone.
Okay.
You have to hit the link
Can
that
you
I
hear me?
sent you.
I'm gonna jump in now, okay?
Okay. All right, Mr. Baker. Uh, like I said, a lot of people forget that I'm out here in California, and when I send them the time, sometimes I'll send it to them 6:30, and they'll be looking at me, like, what do you mean 6:30 with 3 O's? But hopefully, Mr. Baker will be in the queue soon. Uh, yes, sir. There
All
he
right.
is. There's the man himself,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Uh, Art. I was telling people about South Florida because our
Yeah.
last guest was from New York. Whole
Okay.
different set of circumstances. As far
Yeah.
as vaccines, masks, the whole 9 yards. Um, well, first of all, a little bit before we get into all that, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So it's Art Brad. I run Punch by Punch Boxing, and we're pretty much we got a series right now. We've been speaking to a lot of the legends of the game, just talking about their lives, and the whole premise of that initiative is to make sure that younger fighters as well as younger people can hear their stories. A lot of times, some of the younger people see things and they feel like, hey, I can just jump out there and do it big like they did it, and not understand what process is, what that actually means. So we've been talking to a lot of the guys that have a lot of experience in the world of boxing, not just fighters, but we're gonna have judges, promoters, referees, everybody that's surrounding the game, to come in and just talk about how they achieve their level of success. And we want to be sure that people see that story. And it's been working out great so far, man. I'm really excited. We do them on Clubhouse actually. So, if you happen to see that, it's Punch by Punch at Clubhouse. Everybody can tap in, and that's what it is.
Well, that's actually how I found you on
Okay.
Clubhouse.
Right.
I kind of do what do they call it, trolling on different different
Yeah.
conversations, and I kind of listen in, and if I find somebody interesting, then I'm like, well, maybe we should have them on the show. Um,
Yeah. Well, I
Usually
appreciate it.
K9, usually K9's here, but the champ's a little under the weather tonight. But
Okay.
can you tell us how what made you start Punch? Was it Punch by Punch or Punch?
Yeah, it's Punch by Punch boxing. Um, I mean,
Because
basically,
because usually, like you said, it's on Clubhouse, but usually, like it's Clubhouse is a new entity, and
right.
when it first started out, it was only for iPhone users only. I think now you can Android can join in, I believe now, but it, it, it's interesting because there's such a broad array on Clubhouse. So, what made you decide to use that as your platform?
So basically, the way I actually started, we've been on some of the other platforms for some time, in different groups, Facebook, just talking about fights and boxing and sometimes I serve as a personal representative for some of these younger guys. I may be a bridge between them and a manager or a promoter, and life skills, that sort of thing. Sometimes I refer to myself as the invisible bridge, right? So what we decided to do is we said, let's make sure that we can grab one of these social media platforms and really try to grow it so that for all the reasons I stated before, and let's see what happens with that. But it wasn't a situation where we said, "Yay, let's use Clubhouse." We kind of just started there because it's really easy. You can just tap in. You don't have to get dressed. You don't have to worry about your sound too much. You just jump on there and talk, and you can be anywhere you want to be. So, and I'm not selling Clubhouse, but I like the app. It's worked out, and that's pretty much what we're doing.
Uh, so now, where are you located? And you spoke of being a bridge. So, do you do any promotions yourself? Are you involved in any amateur programs?
Yeah, well, so right before the COVID situation took place, we were gearing up for all of that, right? And then COVID hit, and got moved around, on networks and a lot of that stuff started to take place. So just talk to fighters, and we're going to get back into that, of course. Not that we're totally out of it. We still have some dialogue going on, with a couple of people, but um, right now we're focusing on the series pretty much, and that's pretty much how that took place. But to answer your question, yeah, I do. There are a couple of people that we're actually trying to finalize some things now, and I'll be announcing, whole slew of individuals here pretty soon.
Uh, and uh, uh, I wanted to also ask you about some of the recent things that have taken place in boxing, including the recent defeat, of course, of Gary Russell Jr.
Right,
Uh, Very good friend of the show. Been with Gary even before he won the title, and was very sensitive seeing Coach sitting there ill, watching his son suffer his first defeat. Um, but you know, Gary attributed to his shoulder, but and he said he's been suffering that for quite some time.
right, right,
But I also, looking at it, kind of attributed to his inactivity professionally in the
possibility.
ring.
Yes,
You know, no matter. I mean, I know that the family is a boxing family. They all fight together, and I understand all that. But it's different when you're in the ring with somebody that's an opponent, a real
right.
opponent. Um, what would what was your take on the fight? Because you could see very early on that he had no jab at all. All he had was
Yeah,
his left hand. So uh,
yeah,
I think it was especially after the fourth, maybe the sixth round. So I think it was after the fourth where he just, and after the sixth, he almost abandoned it completely. He threw almost nothing but left hands. But what were
right.
your thoughts on that fight?
Well, let's take it back, because we had a lot of discussions about it before the fight, and it was a whole lot of question around the weigh-in, the half pound. There's a lot of emphasis on Gary Russell, but the other guy, he didn't make the weight either. Initially he was a half pound over as well. You didn't really hear as much about that, right? So some of the people were talking. They said, "Man, he doesn't look right, this and that." Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I thought he fought tremendous with one hand. I mean, that was a pure display of why people don't want to get in the ring with him. And if I want to see them have a rematch. Injuries happen. We know that he talked about the fact that this had been an injury for some time, right? Yes, the inactivity. See, with him though, I think it's a little different because it is a boxing family. He's a professional. He's been around the game forever. I've spoken with some people who've been in the gym with him and watched him train, watched his family train, and they speak very highly of the training methods that they use. So I would never not Gary Russell. I just feel that it was an unfortunate thing, untimely situation that happened. And these are some of the things that happen in the sport of boxing. And I respect all fighters because when fighters get in the ring, it's something that not everyone can do, right? I've never fought professionally, but I have been in the ring. I have, been hit and I've hit people back, so I know how that feels firsthand. My father was actually, a professional fighter. And so I was around boxing very, very early in my life. But sometimes I can relate a person being in the ring. And I think at his level, right, which I've never seen anything like that for myself, but at his level, he showed a tremendous courage, even finishing the fight. Nobody would have been mad at him if he would have said, "Hey, man, I can't go because my shoulder's hurting." Nobody would have been upset. They said, "Okay," because there was some talk about an injury, prior to the fight, right? So I think he showed tremendous courage. And I'm gonna tell you something else. I'm not 100. I usually watch the fights 3 or 4 times before I comment. in the way that I'm about to comment, I'm not 100% certain that I know he lost officially, but I'm not 100% certain that he actually lost the fight. So I do want to
I
go back
see.
and watch it.
I,
Yeah.
I watched the fight, and
Hmm.
I would have given the fight a draw. Now, the
Right.
reason why I say that is because if you look back, I think around what from round 8 to round 12, Gary had one hand and hit him 9 times.
Right.
The other guy had two hands and sometimes only hit him 8. So how do
Yes.
you
Absolutely.
so how do you give that round to the other guy?
Right. Right.
You know, a one a
Well,
one a one a one hand man gonna hit you 9 times, and you could only
yeah.
hit him 8, and you win the round. I mean, but anyway, that's
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't there at ringside. I wasn't a judge. I watched it once so far. I'm gonna go back and watch it again because I really like to do that just to make sure that the way that saw it the first time is the way it actually was. And most of the time, I feel the same way after I watch it the second or third time. But at the end of the day, though,
and I watch
both
it
of them is still
without the
rematches.
sound,
Well,
and I
that's a
watch it
great
without
point.
the sound.
If
you know,
if you just want totally a totally straight up honest answer from me, I felt from the onset the commentators just want to have a new Pacquiao, and
yes,
that's kind of what they were pushing. I felt like that from the beginning of the fight, even before they start talking about the shoulder injury. But and that's neither here nor there because the reality of it is, we'll see what happens in the ring because that's gonna always tell the true story. Most of the
right,
time it will, in terms of
right.
longevity and that sort of thing. So we'll see what happens with that part.
Well, now you gave me a perfect segue there when you started talking about longevity because we can talk about Canelo.
Yeah.
Uh, Supposedly, his next fight is going to be May 5th. Of course, we all know he owns Cinco de Mayo. He
Right.
trains right out here in San Diego, uh,
Yeah.
but he imports his meat from Mexico. That's another story.
Right.
But what do you think when it comes to longevity and
Yeah.
being able to cherry pick?
Right.
Canelo has become the master.
Yeah. Well, it's like this, right? And I think what we're seeing now, right, is many fighters and managers and people around them, which the people around the fighters sort of knew this, some time ago. But right now, I think from the fighters' perspective, we're starting to see fighters pay more attention to the business of the sport, right? And some fighters may feel that, I can get in and fight a guy who's considered an easy fight, right? Get a payday and then keep going. Maybe I can line up 3 or 4 of these guys, have a tough fight in between that, line up another 3 or 4 more. This is the thing that everybody has to from you in the ring, right? So, you just never know what's going to happen because there's another grown man that trains, runs, and could be hungry just like the champion is every day. So when we say cherry pick, I look at that and I think there's a ton of validation in that, from a lot of fighters. But also, I feel as though, you never know what a man is thinking. You don't know what type of external things are going to happen. Maybe it was a loss of a loved one. There may be that extra bit of motivation to come in and dethrone the champ. That's why we like to watch the fight. That's why we love the sport, right? But and then okay, so I said that, right? Now let's talk about this for real. Let's get to the real meat and potatoes of it. We haven't seen Andrade and Canelo. We haven't seen Charlo and Canelo. And I know the weight classes are all over the place right now, right? But I'm certain if the two sides came together and said they're going to fight, they could find a weight class to, fight at. get the business done. Because
Hold on.
go ahead, go ahead.
I got to stop you right there because
Okay.
now and this is another thing that why I say Canelo cherry picks because
Mm-hmm.
catch weight.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, Canelo has went up as high as what light heavyweight.
75, yeah,
Okay,
175.
can he still make 160? What 168 now?
I mean, I don't know. I don't
you,
know, you know.
so like you said, now, yeah, they can come together at such and such and such and such,
Yeah,
but you're a champion at this weight class. This is your weight class.
right.
There's a reason why we have weight classes.
There is, absolutely.
So I mean, you can say what you want, but to me, if he's not fighting in that weight and making it, I mean, are you a
Right,
legitimate middleweight or junior middleweight champion if you're
right.
fighting somebody at light heavyweight?
Well, you know that we could look at that on the flip side also, because Floyd was 47 and Canelo, he came from 54. They fought at a catchweight of 52. He fought Floyd because they wanted to make that fight. That was the big money fight, and he got schooled in that fight too. So
Oh
even though,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
know people say, oh, he was a young guy. No, he had 40 plus fights, professional fights at that time. So it wasn't no youth in that. It was just, Floyd was the greater guy in that night. And I don't want to bash Canelo. Canelo is serious. He's a really good fighter. But just from my personal opinion, I think there's some of the guys that he missed coming up. And this is to be fair to Canelo, right? I want to say this: he can only fight one person at a time, right? He's the guy out there that's the money draw, and I think he is active. He does have a terrific resume. He's fought
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
people, right? But the guys that are undefeated that are out there that he missed those guys. He missed the Charlos and he missed the Andretti's when he was at their weights, and
Right,
both of the Charlos. So that's and that's where we look at it and say, well, what happened there? Was it management? Was it Canelo saying no? Let's move on. Was it the business of boxing? What was it there? Or were they not ready? Did people say that consider them not to be ready? I mean, I don't know. We would have to sit down and talk to all sides to really find that out, right? But I think Canelo is active though. Number one, and yes, he's had some tough fights, some tough guys, some big name guys, and I think a lot of it remains to be seen. We're gonna have to see what happens. Now, his next fight is at cruiserweight, I believe, right? Don't they going up to
right,
cruiserweight? Yeah.
right.
So I
And
mean,
then that's what I'm saying. Now you're gonna come all the way back down to one. Nah, you know,
but watch this though. Watch
and
this. We got some guys coming to lightweight that can, and we're gonna see. This is when we're gonna really see what happens, because you still got Artur Beterbiev there, right? At
but he's
75,
not gonna fight
cruising.
those guys.
Watch this.
He's not
Guess
gonna
who
fight.
else?
He's not gonna fight those guys.
We're gonna
He
see,
is not
because
going. He is
if he
not
don't
gonna
fight
fight
them,
Benavidez.
if he doesn't fight them, then we know there's something not right here, right? And guess who else is going to 75 now? Andre Durrell. So Andre Durrell is back at 75. So there's a lot of heat at 175 right now. So if
So it's
Canelo, if he's that guy, then there's some heat there for him to prove what he says he is, or what everybody feels that he is. So it's
or
yet to be seen.
or or
Yeah,
since he has the clout,
right.
maybe he'll do them the same way he did Kovalev.
Woo, woo. Hey,
So
look. If we listen,
I mean, look at the restriction. Have you ever heard of somebody putting those kind of restrictions? How much weight you can gain after the weigh? I mean, come on now,
they did
really?
they did that they did that with Pacquiao and Cotto, you know, and that's the part that I don't really like that at all, because those restrictions he didn't have when I mean, if he can fight there now, imagine what was happening when he was, fighting 54 to his opponents. You know what they were dealing with.
Right. When he
So
was always the bigger man.
always the bigger man.
Okay.
So I got Canelo as far as a boxer, a fighter. I enjoy watching him. I wish the best for him. But I do want to see him take on. I want to see what he'll do now. I just feel like there's some things that for him, for the way that he's because right now he's talking about as being that guy, right? So I just want to see what happens with these next challenges that are ahead, how he approaches them, how his team approaches them, and then we'll be able, when it's all said and done, we'll be able to sit down and do an honest analysis on what took place, how it took place, and where he stands with the rest of the great champions. In my opinion, that's just my humble opinion.
Um, quick note here. February 5th, we have Keith Minitime Thurman
Ah,
fighting. uh,
that's my guy,
yeah,
Keith Thurman. Ah,
yeah,
you say
yeah,
many time,
yeah.
huh?
The one time is over with. We, so what do you think about his coming back in the ring here in the next couple weeks? Art froze up. Oh, there
I
you go.
think that it's going to be interesting because, okay, you got me back now?
Yeah, you good.
Yeah. I said, okay, I think it's going to be really interesting, man. I'm rooting for Keith Thurman. He's a Florida guy, so I'm riding with my Florida people. Uh, I knew that when Keith was on his run, right right before he got the belt, when he went on this run before the Guerrero fight, he was having these fights, and these fights were against not really big name opponents, but they were tough guys. And I said, you know what? I think he needs to probably get some of these easier fights because these fights are pretty tough. Even though he was winning by knockout and this kind of thing, then you saw the injuries start to come, and then
And then
he had these
Sean Porter.
layoffs, you know. Yeah, and well, the Sean Porter fight came, the Garcia fight, and then the Pacquiao fight. I think Keith actually lost that fight more than Pacquiao really beat him. I don't know if he was focused enough for that moment. I think the lights got a little bright. Just watching what he was doing, how he was moving around, and now, man, he's gonna have to show everybody because a lot of people. Because see, that's the thing when you talk a lot, you got to back that up. You know, and when you take that L, everybody's gonna get on you. They're gonna get you. So, but it's interesting. See, this is the thing. Barrios has been active, right? Thurman has not been. Even though he's coming up in weight to fight Thurman, it's going to be interesting to see how Thurman responds to that. And I think it's going to be a tough fight. I'm expecting Thurman to win it, but this is a sport of boxing, and when you get in, you got to get in and so we'll see what happens.
Um, a fighter that I'm very concerned about uh, because I've had a similar injury, and I know a lot of people have heard me talk about it, and that's uh, Errol Spence. Um,
Yeah,
uh, uh, eye injuries themselves are bad enough, but when you have a detached retina, I think it becomes even more important for a fighter. Uh, what are your
yeah.
thoughts on Errol Spence uh, and his comeback fight? And do you really see an Errol Spence Terrence Crawford fight taking place in 2022?
Man, that's the $1 million question. That's the $1 million question. Errol Spence is another one of my favorite fighters, man. I've been watching him. I watched him. He actually fought at an arena that was down the street from where I lived in at the BB&T Center in Fort Lauderdale. I used to go there. I think he was It was probably like his 10th fight, and one the next one was maybe his 12th or 13th, something like that. But anyway, I caught him early. I watched him through the Olympics. You know, I saw a little bit of his amateur career a couple times, but you know, that injury, that detached retina, the car wreck, layoff. I wanted, you know, and I saw his last fight. I felt like he boxed beautifully. You know, it was just a beautiful boxing display. But I also felt that he was a little more cautious about, you know, the punches, and he had more defense, more of that type of defense. You know, it's a lot of different things you can do defensively when you're in the ring. But I saw a lot more movement from him, lateral movement, you know, in and out movement, that kind of thing. But you know, I just want to see him do well, and I think that in 2022, listen, the thing in boxing that I want to see most is a Terrence Crawford Errol Spence fight. Will we see it? I don't even want to. I hope so. I'm gonna just end it there. I hope we do. I really hope we do, because I think that's the fight that everybody needs to see, and that's the fight that's gonna determine who the man is. You know.
Let's see if Mr. Brad gets back in. I'd like to thank everybody over there in the queue, though, for all of uh, their comments. Uh, Good to see everybody over there. Don't forget to give us a like. Don't forget like, share, and subscribe. Uh, Most importantly, uh, I'd like to address once again uh, the Bob Arum, Terrence Crawford uh, ideal, uh, the lawsuit. And the reason why I bring this up is because this has a lot to do with whether or not we will see an Errol Spence Terrence Crawford fight in 2022. So hopefully they can get this settled, and we can go on with what's what's happening here. Uh, well, sometimes there's a lot of interference between us and the West Coast. I mean, and the East Coast. We never know what the weather is like over there.
Yeah, it's a
What
little rainy here.
Okay, that
I'm
that
back.
might
Can you hear me?
okay, yeah, that
Yeah,
might have a lot to do with it. If it's raining there, like I said, we're
yeah,
on two different coasts. I'm all the way, uh,
right.
but uh, very quickly, we were talking about this Errol Spence Terrence Crawford fight, but
Hmm.
there's another aspect to that too, because will we have this fight while Terrence Crawford is still in civil court with Bob Arum?
It's a good question.
And for someone that's been around boxing for quite some time, I mean, I remember the old battles between Bob Arum and Don King, and Don King with the flag only in America. And I mean, so
Right.
this is not the first time that Bob Arum has been called a racist, but it's the first time it's been, I say, since maybe that we've had the internet. You still there, Brett? Uh, yes. My background was that this is not the first time that we've had Bob Arum called a racist, but
Right.
it's the first time it's taken fire on the internet.
Hmm.
Uh, but then when you look back at Bob's career, Bob is older than I am, so Bob's been around since you had the smoky backroom deals and boxing and all the dirty. I mean, it- from the dirt to whatever it is today. Okay, and I've known Bob to be a very shrewd businessman,
Yeah.
but I've never known Bob to be a racist in the political term. I think we've lost Brad again. But I'd like them to. If there's anybody over here in the audience that uh, has an opinion, do you think that Bob Arum is a racist? And if you send me your email uh, or put it up here somewhere where we can find it. Uh, yeah, I do agree with you there, General and David. That Bud. I mean, the only challenge that he probably has is Errol Spence. I do agree with that. Uh, so, uh, but I tell you what, let's end the program here. K9, we hope that you recover. Uh, I know it's just a matter, you're training, so you recover, take care of the little ones. We appreciate everyone that's joined in the show tonight. Make sure you get that link, join the link, and give us those likes over there on YouTube. Uh, and as I said, I'd like for some people, to give us some comments on whether or not you think Bob Arum is a racist, and will we see Bud and Errol Spence in 2022? Uh, thank everyone for coming on the show tonight. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody.